Hi, today I have the pleasure of speaking with Markell Morris, who is an experienced career counselor. Thank you for joining me today, Markell.
Thank you for having me.
Today, we're going to be talking about career counseling from a career perspective. If anybody wants to get into this line of work, this is the person we want to be talking to, and we'll just get into it. What is a career counselor? Tell us.
Well, a career counselor, and I have worked in many settings, so I'll talk primarily about career services at colleges and universities. We help students with their really their career decision making and planning. So we help them learn about themselves, learn about the possibilities that exist for them, and how to put the pieces together, and how to maximize their time while they're in school and best prepare for entering the job market. We focus on the nuts and bolts too of resume development and cover letter development, interview preparation.
Okay.
That's kind of
So
an overview of what we do.
So do student are students encouraged to come in and visit the career services centers at the freshman level?
Absolutely. Not only at the freshman level, entering college, many colleges also have career-related programs for high school and junior high students.
Hmm.
But at University Career Services, our primary focus is working with the college students who are enrolled, at our institutions, and we are a visible presence at orientation. So when they come on campus for their orientation, as they're all excited to get started, we do our, dog and pony show there. Quite often, we also are very engaged with student activities. So we might go into the residence life, into the dorms and do presentations for the students there. When they're in their fraternity and sorority experiences, we're often asked to go and do presentations and work with the students through those activities. So we encourage students to be thinking about and preparing for their careers from the time they step on campus to the time they exit.
Okay, so for a student body at a university, we can be talking tens of thousands of students. Now, what about the student population that doesn't feel, oh, maybe I don't need it or anything like that? Is the Career Services Center there only for people who opt into it, or is there any kind of anything that holds students accountable for at least visiting once?
Depends on the school. So for I would say most schools, it's a voluntary, type of experience, and we encourage students to come in and talk with a career counselor. And I have had that experience, where students like, well, I know what I want to do. I don't need career services. But what we do help students with is developing their resume. So even if you know what you want to do, we help you with developing your resume, preparing for your interviewing, with networking opportunities so that you can meet potential employers. So even if you know what job you want or what industry you want to join, career services can still be a support to you in, your life after college.
Do university career service counselors connect students with alumni members as well to bridge that gap and maybe bring some kind of job shadowing and so forth?
In different ways. So in my experience at the colleges and universities that I've been a part of, the way that students can connect with alumni with career services is we have events. So we have events throughout the year, career related events, and we would ask alumni to come and be panelists, or guest speakers in our events, and maybe participate in our career fairs, if they're representing a company that students are interested in. So those are some of the most common ways that career services will connect students with alumni. And then we partner with alumni career services. And alumni associations will usually have some sort of a database of alumni. Many have career opportunities for alumni, and students can also participate in those. So some universities even have alumni, student alumni, preparing the students to become alums. And in that, they have opportunities for students to connect with alumni who are representing the careers that they're interested in. So there are a lot of opportunities for students to connect with alumni.
Okay. So that was, I think, a high, broad overview of what career services is. So let's start drilling down. Now, a lot of there's a lot of assessments, I'm assuming, different programs within the offices that you can put students through. Like, what do we not see as somebody who I'm not involved with a career service center, so I don't even know what it entails other than the broad information you just gave me. So if we can get more specific, let me know about that.
Sure. With alumni career services, or excuse me, with career services, we approach helping students in many different ways. So one of the most common ways that we work with students is one-on-one. So student might be undecided about their major, or perhaps they know their major, but they're undecided about how they want to apply that, after graduation. And so as a career counselor working with an undecided student or an exploring student, we take them through what we call a career development or career planning process. And at the foundation of that, it's really helping them to understand what they're interested in, what their natural strengths are, their personality characteristics. And we help them do that with questions, conversation, give them worksheets, journaling assignments. We use standard assessments. The most common assessments that people are most familiar with are the Myers-Briggs type indicator, perhaps the Clifton Strengths, the Strong Interest Inventory. And depending on the campus, you might use other tools, but use a card sort for helping students to identify their skills, maybe clarify their values. So we do that as a big part of our process of helping students to identify majors and career possibilities that they might want to pursue. So we do a lot of that. We do it in one-on-one, and we also offer classes. So a student can go through a career development class. So many colleges and universities offer that as part of the curriculum. And these are typically voluntary, classes that students can choose to take. And they'll go through this process. They'll learn how to explore careers and ask questions about careers and find out how much money people can make and what are in-demand
Right.
careers, all of those things. Mhm.
So when students come in senior year, second semester, uh, it's kind of late, but how do you steer those visits?
I've actually had I had one, it's a funny experience. I had a student come in right before graduation, like literally she was graduating in an hour. She was on her
Oh
way to
my God.
graduation and stopped at the career center on her cap and gown on her way to graduation.
I didn't know we were going to cut it that close. I was thinking, senior year, but that I think is the closest I've ever heard. And what did you say?
We do the best that we can. We have articles, we have a career guide. And we just do the best that we can in that. We obviously we can't help them figure out their future in 15 minutes, but we can give them a framework and some resources for them to get started. So yeah, we students come in at all different stages. I mean, you're going to have those students who are really, focused and they want to get an advantage and they come in right away. And, then you get the students who sort of wake up halfway through because all their classmates are starting to talk about interviews and internships, and then you get some that are a little bit later in their academic experience. And we do what we can, with them at every step along the way. At some career centers, and the one I've been fortunate to work at career centers that have been pretty well developed, have a great infrastructure and a lot of resources and tools. And so we have sort of a timeline that we might offer to them, what kinds of things that you might want to be focusing on at this point in your career. And if you are still not sure, then, maybe you want to make an appointment and, work with us. Even if they can only work with us for 2 or 3 times, that's still
Mm,
more than nothing. We can
mm.
at least help them get a little bit farther along in their decision making and their career planning process. So we some of the colleges that have a lot more resources might do something like what I've experienced is having sort of like a last chance type of a thing, or like a career jumpstart, type of an experience directly focused for seniors or those who would be graduating. And so maybe in a day, like a little mini conference, or over a week, we'll have an intensive programming for them to get everything they need to get at least ready for a job search.
Okay. Now, for somebody who wants to become a career counselor as a career, what does the day to day look like? What can you run into as you're going into work, opening up shop? What can I look forward to?
Well, I think what's really helpful to understand is that career counseling is counseling. And so any human circumstance you can imagine you might be faced with, even as a career counselor. And so really having a solid background in counseling skills and counseling preparation is really helpful. But the typical day to day, I mean, we're problem solvers. People are coming to us because they have a problem. And so you have to really be oriented towards supporting people and solving their personal problems as it relates to their careers and preparation for that. So you can, depending on your day, you might have 4, 5, 10 counseling sessions with a student. You might have a 30-minute session, you might have an hour-long session, and the topics vary from, again, I came in because I don't know what I want to do and I want to figure it out because I don't want to take classes that are not going to help me. I need to get an internship. I'm not really sure where to go. I'd like to get a part-time job. I really like to talk with somebody who's doing this work. So any of those topics can present as in your day. And so you
Mm.
might spend 30 minutes or an hour with a student talking about any number of those things. You have to be really adept with accessing resources. You have to be very resourceful to help students get the information that they need and to make the connections that they need. So part of our day also is spent researching and looking up information. So professional development is also part of what we regularly do. Reading articles, attending webinars, attending conferences. That's a big part of it. And then collaborating with our colleagues to put on programming events, whether it's a career fair, a workshop. Again, we teach classes. So we do a lot.
Wow. So, and even putting on career fairs, that's like an event coordinator job hat that you have to wear as well, because
It
you're
can
dealing
be.
with
I mean,
volunteers, companies, venue.
for sure. And again, it varies by campus. There are some campuses where the career counselors actually are involved with putting on the career fairs, contacting employers, being there the day of, preparing students. And then there are some career centers that have a complete staff, like maybe an employer relations staff that does all of that. And then the career counselors are there to volunteer on the day, or not volunteer, we work the day of, we walk around, we help students feel comfortable, we greet employers and, educate ourselves about the opportunities so we can pass that on to the students. So yeah, it can be our one-on-one career counseling, group counseling with workshops and classes, as well as some administrative stuff with actual programming.
So if someone wants to become a career counselor, would I have to go and get a career degree? Do I have to get a certification? What are the steps to do that?
So it's going to I keep saying it's going to vary because it
Yeah.
really does by setting. So in the community college setting, counselors and career counselors specifically have to have at least a master's degree in counseling or something closely related. So it doesn't have to be career counseling specifically, but it can be career counseling, or it could be counseling, rehab counseling, something counseling related. That's a minimum requirement for California community colleges. Okay, for the four-year colleges and universities, typically it's a bachelor degree in something and then some experience and perhaps certifications in the Myers-Briggs, a strong interest inventory, national certified counselor, and then our professional association, the National Career Development Association, offers career certification and career training. So someone might get one of their certificates or credentials, and that would enable them to work as a career counselor. It may not be required, but those are strongly desired qualifications and credentials in most career counseling for most career counseling jobs.
Does that also apply to public school systems as far as career counselors?
So in the public school system, that's governed by the state. And so there is a special credential called a PPS credential. So anyone who is a counselor in a K through 12 environment has to have the counseling degree, the master's degree, in addition to the pupil personnel services credential.
Okay. So that's almost a different animal. I mean,
It's an additional credential. I don't know offhand how many additional units it is. Maybe it's an additional 20 units.
mm, okay. Now,
Mm.
there are a lot of universities coming up. Like, for example, off the top of my head, National University, University of Phoenix, things like that. Are those held to a different standard than the community colleges and universities?
For career counselors.
Yes.
I'm not as familiar with those for-profit institutions. I have worked at for-profit institutions as a career counselor, as a faculty member, and they my credentials were totally fine. You
Okay.
know, they didn't have, they looked at my profile, obviously I had to interview and submit my resume, and I had to create curriculum and do go through that whole entire process. They were more focused on, can you help our students prepare for the job market?
Mm,
And what have you done to be able to do that? I happened to be working with graduate students. So the fact that I had a graduate degree already and I had worked with graduate students was really desirable experience. So in my case, it was a non-issue because I had the credentials to do that. But I think that from anecdotally, people that I've met, it's not necessarily a requirement to have an advanced degree in counseling to be a career counselor in those settings.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your experience. Tell us about your career path and how you got to become a career counselor. I mean, was that what you've always wanted to do right out of the gate, or did it just kind of develop,
A
evolve?
little bit of both. I always wanted to be a counselor, so that was what my career aspiration was early on, but I didn't really define it, and I didn't, really know exactly what that was going to look like in real life. So, went to college and got my degree, and it was actually after my undergraduate degree. I had a temporary job working at a community college, California Community College, and I worked in a student support program, EOPS, and I was an outreach coordinator. I didn't do anything related to counseling, but I got a chance to see counselors and see what they were doing and talk with them. And I thought, oh, that's what I want to do. And so I had to go get a graduate degree because that was the minimum requirement. So I went and got a graduate degree in counseling. And it was while I was in my graduate program that I got exposed to career counseling theories and practice. And I did my internship at San Diego State Career Services. And from there, I've just kept on the path of career counseling. And I've done it in many different settings. So I've worked in social services. I've worked in every form of college. I've worked in community college. I've worked in private colleges, liberal arts colleges. I've worked in for-profit colleges and public universities. So I've worked in pretty much every higher ed setting. And then I also have worked in private practice. And I've worked as a consultant for organizations as well.
Is there a different credential needed for people working with veterans? Or is
No,
that just okay?
not really, but you would probably, there's some specialty areas that don't necessarily require an additional credential, but some specialized knowledge, like working with our veterans, because especially in a college setting, because they have certain like funding requirements and that. And so, and they have access to job opportunities that maybe the general public doesn't because they have certain clearances. So like just really helping them with that so that there's some specialized knowledge that a person might need and want to have, and working with international students because there's visa status, type of things, and their ability to work while they're in school and after. So there's some complexities, nuances to working with international students as an example. um, but as far as specialized credentials, typically the credentials that people will hold, like I was mentioning, are, certification in uh, career assessments, different career assessments, and then counseling certification. So like I early on, I got certified as a national certified counselor through a national board that offered the certification for counselors through the American Counseling Association. And then, like I said, the National Career Development Association has counseling certifications that people can obtain through their education and experience. And that's a credential. And it may not be required, but it can be certainly a nice to have. Employers recognize it as, a marker of competence. So people might opt to get those.
Okay. Now, looking back on your career, are there any kind of stories or challenges or bumps in the road that you faced that could help somebody look out for who does want to do this as a career?
I have a lot. We could be here all day, but without going into, a lot of the specifics, I think when I look back at, the different challenges or bumps, setbacks, redirections, what I would say that I would take away from those experiences is that recognizing that every place is different. So, career counseling is career counseling, but where you do it is going to give you a different experience. And so you might be doing work that you love, but you want to be doing work that you love in the right place. And so it's very important if you're exploring this career possibility, not only to learn what career counselors do day to day in their work, but to learn what it's like in specific settings and also even specific departments, because I've worked at many universities, they're not all the same. I've worked at several different community colleges, they're not all the same. We're doing all the same work, but what it looks like there is very different. There's different cultures. And so that is something that I would, advise people to really take a look at when they're exploring career counseling as a career or any career really, is to do the legwork and really learn as much as possible about different settings.
For the university setting, something popped into my mind about athletes. There's a big population of athletes at university, and only a limited number will go pro. So, is there any specialization that is given that you've seen or worked with to athletes specifically? Because, I mean, they're students, but they're spending a lot of time doing things that normal students wouldn't do. You're
Mhm.
out on the field, you're training, you're taking classes that pertain to sports sometimes, and sometimes, you know, they won't go pro. So, any thoughts or experience with that?
Sure. Well, I've worked at Division I schools, and so those are the top schools for athletics. So those are the students that, many people point to as most likely to go pro. But even among them, they're not going to. But depending on the sport, they may not actually have a whole lot of time for career exploration or internships or what have you. But I have had experience in the past working with student athletes as a career counselor. And in this example, our career services center, we were liaisons. The career counselors were liaisons to different sports. And so, for example, I was one year, or for a few years, I was a liaison to the tennis team. And so I was responsible for, being the career counselor for the tennis team, reaching out to them, encouraging them to come in and, meet with me, help talk to them about their career goals and aspirations and, preparing for a job search. For some students, they're limited again and being able to have a job or being able to do internships. So we talked about ways that they might be able to get some kind of experience, even if it's a weekend or something like that. But, and
Right.
then also how to promote themselves and their status as a student athlete on their resumes and cover letters and during interviews, and even how to make connections with donors or the supporters of their athletic teams. So just creative ways so that they can maximize their experience to the best of their ability while they are students. And then of course you're going to meet with those students who recognize that they're not going to be going pro, and they're fine with that, and they're looking at how to integrate into the world of work after that. And then there are some student athletes who that's their focus. And they come in because coach told them to or
Right. So, what can an entry level career counselor at a university level look at as far as salary? And what is that range?
Uh, I can't answer that in terms of, what it is today. I know that there are differences in salaries. So community colleges in California, counselors tend to get paid more because we have a different status. It's a faculty status, so we tend to get paid a little bit more. And if you're looking at if you want to know about salaries, obviously you can go to, the websites, and you can find out what I've been seeing as far as an entry level salary at a typical college, 4-year college. It's around 50 to 55,000.
Okay. How
So
high can it get? How high have you seen it get?
you can go up depending on the setting, you can get to the six figures. You can, yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
you can with yeah. Not
Okay.
maybe not at the entry level, but yeah, it depends on the setting. You can, get started around 90 into the 90s. Yeah.
Okay.
Those job opportunities don't come often. And again, there's adjunct and there, which is part-time, there's the full-time tenure track, and it just depends on which college, because it's not standard across the state or across institutions. But yeah.
Okay. And if somebody came to you saying, Markel, what advice do you have for me? I want to become a career counselor, but where do I start? What advice do you have for somebody?
The advice that I have for someone who's interested in pursuing this career is any career really, but especially as a career counselor. I think one of the value, what we can bring to the experience for our students is our own self-awareness. So I say first and foremost, learn as much as you can about who you are as a person and professional, and have some clarity around that and what your own career goals are, because you're going to be guiding other people through that process. So you should do it yourself. So I think that's important. And I think also understanding that as a career counselor, you are a counselor. And so if you're serious about becoming a career counselor, it's not as easy as just knowing how to do resumes and cover letters and helping people with a job search. You're really helping people with making career decisions. And so and there's all kinds of factors involved with that. A person's self-esteem, their self-concept, their family history. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can come into play with this. And so you need to have a solid counseling foundation. And so if you want to be a career counselor, I would invest in having a counseling degree. Honestly, I think that would be important, whether it's required or not. I haven't actually met a career counselor who is a university career counselor or college career counselor who doesn't have an advanced degree in counseling. So really and truly, you should do that. And then any opportunity that you have to help people in some form or fashion as it relates to their career development, career planning, do it as a volunteer, as a mentor, get an internship, do job shadowing, and talk with as many career counselors as you're able to, because it'll help you to really understand what they do and how they approach it. And it'll also help you build your network. So that's the advice that I would give for people just getting started.
Okay, great. Now, as for where your career counseling um, experience has taken you, what are you doing now? And tell us about all the good things and where we can reach you, your social medias, all the good stuff.
Well, one of the things I love about being a career counselor and or a career practitioner is it offers so much flexibility, and I've been able to create a career for myself that really aligns with and supports my own personal goals and my lifestyle preferences. So today I have a portfolio career. I mean, some people today refer to it as a gig. I was doing gig before it became popular. We used to call it a portfolio career. And so I work at two community colleges as an adjunct counselor, and I have my own private practice, which is called Futures in Motion. And if you go on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, X, and you type in Futures in Motion, all one word, I'll come up.
Okay.
So I'm on all the platforms as Futures in Motion. And if you type in my name, Markell Morris, I will come up. So on the first page of Google, it is going to all be me.
Okay. So you offer career services.
So my company, Futures in Motion, is a career management company, and I do one-on-one career coaching and counseling with people. Most of my clients are established professionals who are looking at pivoting their career. So in some
Hmm.
cases, they're re-entering the job market after having faced a life-altering challenge, or some of them are redirecting their career. They're at a place where they are looking at advancing their career or perhaps considering doing something different. And so I work with them similar to the format of the college students that I work with, doing career assessments and helping them really to understand, how they're wired, what their motivators are, what their career priorities are, and their non-negotiables, and looking at, what the possibilities are and helping them to explore those possibilities and getting in position for the career that they want to have in the future. That's what I help my clients with.
Awesome. Check it out. Futures in Motion. Markel Morris, thank you so much for spending time with me today and really giving me a lot of insight into the career of career counseling. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.